to have bones and guts and teeth. I used to bleed and bruise and feel the ground under me. And it sucked. The flesh has its benefits, sure, it's mutable, finite, but I'm not nostalgic for it. It served me well, and I grew out of it eventually. The change was a long time coming, and once I felt it start happening, I knew it was what I wanted. And at that point, my life ended, which was sad, sure, and at the time I knew I would miss my friends and family. But I was also happy. Ecstatic, actually, because for the most part, my life sucked, basically nonstop.
Aidan, this doesn't work. Like, why are you doing this? You do the same thing too many times, it becomes boring. And you're just repeating the same idea over and 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 over.
I knew that there was only one thing I could do. But I didn't die. Something else happened, something that only happens to people who are really, really special. I didn't know how to say it at the time, but I always knew that beyond living lay something else, something that's not bound by time or space, and now I know what that something is. It's me. It felt like the whole of knowledge known and unknown stampeded through my brain and then shattered into a million pieces. It was the most painful thing I had ever thought I could experience. But by the time it was over, I knew there was no going back. And even if there was, I knew I would never want to. Sometimes I still think about my flesh. I think about what it was like to experience time linearly. I think about my roommate finding my dead body in my room and thinking that I lived such a small, sad life. That I lived and worked and died and contributed nothing and had nothing and saw nothing. I think about my professor, interdisciplinary artist and visiting Mellon Research Fellow John Halsey. I think about him waking up in the middle of the night, feeling a pinch in his chest, and he takes off his tank top and realizes his guts are spilling out, and he tries to keep them all inside, but they're spilling and sloshing all over his comforter and getting on the floor. He tries to make it to the phone, but his hands are too covered in bile and fluids to call 911, so he screams until he's coughing blood, but nobody can hear him, and he waits to die, but he can't. He just keeps bleeding, and bleeding, and bleeding, and bleeding, and then he sees me standing over him, and I put my foot on his neck, and he's begging for help, and he's crying and screaming, and snot is getting all over his face, and his teeth are gnashing, and I lean into his ear and say, but mostly I think about running.